I am so excited about this panel. And it's a perfect, Dr. Gold's talk was a perfect segue into this panel. The reason I wanted this is third-party free specialty care. Back when the direct primary care movement got going, and a lot of family practitioners and internal medicine people were going private, cash pay, transparency, and returning to patient-centered, physician-directed care. One of the stumbling blocks was specialty care. And so this panel is made up of 3 physicians who have separated themselves from the, if you want to call it, the medical industrial complex, and have established specialty care as a parallel system here. And there are a lot of us in this room think that that's going to be the solution of the future, is the parallel system. Dr. Cristin Held is a fellow ophthalmologist from San Antonio, and in 2015, as she said, she went totally cash pay. She disengaged herself from Medicare as well as from all commercial insurance, has been very successful in doing so. We also have Dr. Cristin Dickerson. We're very pleased to have her. She founded Green Imaging in 2011 to provide affordable care for people who are uninsured or had maximum deductibles. And finally, last but not least, is Dr. Keith Smith, who's become very well known nationally and actually internationally, having founded the Surgery Center of Oklahoma when people would say, no, there's not any way you could do a cash-based surgical practice. He also started the Free Market Medical Association. And again, each one of them have so many qualifications to be able to speak on this. Please read their bios in our program. Dr. Cristin Held has volunteered to be the moderator for the panel, and I invite you up, and I'm very anxious to hear what you have to say.
Well, sadly, I'll probably have to put on reading glasses to get through this, but thank you, Jane, for inviting me. I first met Jane when she was my chief resident in ophthalmology, and she inspired me to go into ophthalmology, so this is quite a fun full circle moment for me. So that was an amazing talk by Dr. Gold. I feel encumbered by the past, by that talk, and encumbered by the present, and hopefully I can be encumbered to contribute something to the future in this area. This is the only lane I think we have. I think we're headed down a pretty scary road right now where things are, but I think that this is the way to go. And here's just a thank you for letting me be here. And I'm especially honored to serve with Dr. Dickerson and Dr. Smith, who I regard as visionaries, leaders, and role models. I'm really happily practicing medicine today only because I completely severed ties with all agreements with all third party, including opting out of Medicare about 9 years ago on October 1st of 2015. My goal today is to inspire and encourage you to leave the current system that has devolved into a regulatory captured tsunami of politicians and laws, bureaucrats, rules and regs, large insurance, hospital, pharmaceutical, IT, corporate, medical, industrial complex, which I will now call the MIC, laden with layers upon layers of middlemen and waste, battering the patient and physician upon whom their stated purpose is justified, devoid of ethics, expertise, and trust. I'm a physician grounded in the medical ethics espoused in the Hippocratic Oath and AAPS. My goal is to serve my patient to the best of my ability. I engage in a personal, private patient-physician relationship with each patient. I reject the current principles of groups of physicians treating groups of patients with no one assuming any individual responsibility for the individual patient. I reject medical plans dictated by drop-down menu protocol in lieu of creative and critical thinking tailored to the individual patient. I reject the premise that quality metrics and data reporting represent quality, safety, effectiveness, or reality. I recall being told, if you don't document it, you didn't do it, even if you did. Does the corollary apply? If you document it, you did it, even if you did not. So from the Prohibition Clause, which we all know has been 100% desecrated, to HIPAA, Obamacare, MACRA, high-tech, and the never-ending cascade of federal laws, rules, regs, the patients and physician have been replaced by the MIC. And this succession of failed laws has brought us to the dysfunctional system of today. Reimbursements, time spent with each patient, patient access to medication, surgery and specialists, and life expectancy have gone down, while inflation, operating costs, quotas, EMR time, wait times, and cost of insurance for patients have gone up. The COVID public health catastrophe confirmed that government centralized top-down medicine is an abject failure. During this time, I was downsizing in my house where we raised our 4 daughters, and we were living temporarily in an apartment in downtown San Antonio, and this is what I would look out the window to see, the communist circles, I called them, and my Congressman Chip Roy fondly called them, when I brought him to show them, now they call them Kris's circles, which I don't really like. The suppression of scientific discourse and critical thinking, cancellation of physicians who question the government narrative and pharma, and collusion and cover-up by pharma and government, including mandates, bribery, and punishment, proved that the totalitarian government corporate one world ruling class of elites lack the expertise and ethics to control medicine. It is our duty to stop participating in a perverse system and forge a clean new practice model. It's time for all physicians to do the Drexit. And I really wanted to show a video of Do the Hustle, but I was going to age myself if I did that. So, sadly, as of January 2024, 77.6% of physicians in the U.S. are employed by health systems, 55% with hospitals and hospital systems, 22% with corporate entities, and we all have friends and colleagues who are selling practices to private equity or becoming employed. Only 22.5% now are shareholders in their own practices. The COVID pandemic accelerated this trend. And I heard this yesterday at the AAPS meeting from Dr. Richard Ammerling. The descent into tyranny was led by the medical profession, and I can't get that off my mind. Perverse regulatory captured system. It is deceitful, wasteful. Do not play, dance away. This is a bill that the surgery center gave a patient of mine who I had agreement with. We had a direct pay agreement, okay? So I have gone to my surgery center. My husband is a businessman in commercial real estate, and he said, you find out what is going to make a good deal for everyone all around. You go and you negotiate it, and you keep going until they say no, and you don't get your feelings hurt. So I have learned, and I went and I negotiated with my surgery center. And I got it down to the point where you can see that number there in the middle, I have underlined, $1,236. That's what I pay the surgery center when I perform cataract surgery at an ambulatory surgery center. And then there's an extra little fee of $471 because the patient upgraded to a toric intraocular lens. Look at the gamesmanship in there. Cataract removal, $26,349. Insurance adjustment contribution, well, I guess that's me, because the patient made the agreement with me. I guess that's how they classified it. $25,113. That's what the surgery center says. Now, this is an interesting case, because this patient had had a retinal detachment surgery and had a little cyst around a retina surgeon had left a suture. So at the time, I was going to take that in, and being the honest person I am in my operative note, I said that I removed the cyst. Well, the women that, and at our surgery center, it is a woman, that perused my chart looking for extra ways to bill, tacked on a mere $10,265 for the cyst I snipped off, but gave my patient a benefit of $8,000. So we went to town on this. I really took them to task on this and got them to redo it. But boy, do we have to have our eyes open. And this is why we need our own surgery centers. Dr. Smith is right on target. So I want everyone to evaluate your current practice status, your moral compass, your morale, your physical status, and your lifetime. Are these facets of your life healthy? Because embarking on a direct patient care, third-party free practice will heal what festers. I severed all ties with third party in 2015. 12 days from today, I'll begin my 10th year of direct third party free surgical care specialty. And it's been a little bit challenging because ophthalmology happens to have a lot of Medicare age patients. And you know, once you get on Medicare, you can't even contribute to an HSA anymore. So I want you to be creative. I heard the word creative earlier, and I agree that. We've all got to be creative, liberate yourself and your patients. I'll share what I've done, but I think what you need to do is do your homework and do better. So what you need to do is pursue resources and mentors. That's where APS is, and that's where I met Dr. Smith. I pursued him. He was so wonderful in writing an APS and through APS. And you know what? When we called, he picked up. We said, can we come see your place? He said, come on up. We went to the OR. We saw Surgery Center of Oklahoma. I went with my friend, Dr. Scott Sledge, a shoulder surgeon, and at that time we had great aspirations of creating a multi-center surgical OR. We were unable to pull that off. I think we're just too old and not as visionary as Dr. Smith. But I think what I'm doing works for ophthalmology. I hope that you will clone yourself and that people will go forward and do this, at least implant some cells in our brain. I hear that's possible that we can go forward and do this. So join ethical and conflicted organizations like AAPS, and they will tell you how to opt out of Medicare and deliver excellent medicine. And everyone here knows Jane Orient, Larry Huntoon, Jeremy Snavely, and Andy Schlafly. They're truly invaluable. So what does Medicare cover for cataract surgery? You know, it really hit me like a brick in 2014 before I did this. I was getting all ready for my daughter's wedding and getting fake eyelashes and hair and nails. And I couldn't believe when I checked out what I paid. I had to hide it from my husband. But it was as much as I would get for doing a cataract. And I thought, you know what? If I paid that, maybe someone will do it for their eye. I've got more than 2 hairs. So the basic, as of 2022, the national average for the doctor and facilities fee for routine cataract surgery are surgeon's fee, $544, facility fee, $1,062, that's an average. At the ASC, it can be as low as $96. At the hospital, it can be $1,683. For the patient, the cost is very much lower. So at an ASC, Medicare will pay $1,500, the patient will pay $380. And at an outpatient department, Medicare will pay $2,300 and the patient pays $588. So a patient who comes paying direct pay is not going to pay that much more, and particularly if they have to upgrade a lens. And here's my tribute to Dr. Smith, and I was actually there back in the day. He is a visionary trailblazer, expert physician mentor who's unselfish. He's an intellect, a friend, and he may be medicine's Musk. And Jane Hughes. You've got to cultivate and maintain a tight-knit network of ethical, patient-centered colleagues you treasure and trust for the journey, and we've been on a journey. This is interesting. According to Kaiser Family Foundation, 1% of non-pediatric physicians have formally opted out of Medicare in 2023. There's about 983,000 physicians, and 1.1% have opted out. Most are psychiatrists. 40% of psychiatrists have opted out. As far as ophthalmology, there's 24,000 ophthalmologists. This is 2.5% of all physicians. 76 of us have opted out, 0.3%. When I opted out, there were 16,500 of us, and only 30 had opted out. I was number 31. I always wanted to be a top 1%er, but not really in this way. So you need to be pragmatic. Are you employed now? When can you give your 2-week notice? Is there a non-compete clause? And if you own your own practice, how can you transition? Do you have debt, student loan, your current practice? How long have you been in practice? And I think it helped me to have been in practice a long time because I had a large base of pre-existing patients of about 40,000 charts. But I think you can start from scratch because you don't have as much undergrowth. So how can you salvage and grow that? How much money do you need to make? How much will you strive to make? How much do you want to work? I was at a point in my time where I wanted to back off a little bit with my work-life balance, and I absolutely did not want take-home work. So you need to sit down and look at what are the overhead costs of your specific specialty. Ophthalmology is expensive and laden with very expensive equipment. Where can you operate? Inpatient, outpatient, office, ASC. I had a laser center. Staff requirements, IT requirements, equipment, and of course marketing. So I've done all in my career. I've leased, then we built a building with physicians in the building, then we sold it, then we leased again. There's advantages to both. You can look at the numbers with your accountant. But we're currently moving. My younger associates are building the new building. I'm done with that. I don't think it matters, and I don't think it matters if you're direct pay or not, whether you share an office with people that are not direct pay or if everyone in the office is direct pay. That hasn't been a problem for us. I just say cut the strings and trim the fat. And there's really no problem too big or too small that can't be solved outside this system. And here's one of my lovely reps in the OR. The OR is fun. I call it wean and clean. This is what you do. Look at every third-party contract you're in, make a spreadsheet for all your services and procedures. Look at the high, the low, the median, the mean for your plan. Look at Medicare and Medicaid. Determine what the fair market value is for yourself. You know, how costly is this for you to do the procedure? How long does it take? Does it take staff? Is there equipment? Is there risk? And then establish your own fee schedule. And then you have to do the math. Will this work? So take the number of patients you see and the procedure you do, plug all these numbers in or back into it. What do you need to collect and how much do you want to work doing what? And you can plan your numbers. It's pretty easy to do. If you look at your overall composition of payers, you need to know what percent of your revenue is coming from each payer and what percent of your patient volume. Drop Medicaid first because they don't honor your prescriptions or orders for labs anyway and no imaging. Offer true charity instead. So I see Medicaid patients and they love it. I can offer true charity or I can offer a very low fee with dignity and they love that. No one wants you to just totally charge nothing. Initially go from participating to non-participating with Medicare, and it makes your patients have to see how much they're paying and how ridiculous these fake bills are, an example of which I just showed you. And it's education and conversation are key. Then opt out and go private contracted. Drop your low payer insurance first and then let it re-equilibrate. Keep dropping until it re-equilibrates and then you're ready to go all the way out. And again, communicate. There's a value in the patient-physician relationship. It's trusted, accessible, reliable, and you don't want them to be mad at you and think you're mean. There's also factors in savings. Like I stayed with paper charts. I did not want to waste money on EMR, nor did I like the intrusion into them. I feel that those are private information. You don't need the complex, meaningful use IT and associated problems with MIPS and data reporting and collecting. You don't need a scribe. You don't need a billing service. You don't even really have to be, I always respect patient privacy, but if you don't bill online electronically, you aren't subject to HIPAA. And then develop your business plan. This is pretty easy. Go to your banker, set up a line of credit. You're going to want backup. Set up 2 business accounts for that bank, one to collect on the credit cards and put in all your deposits, another one to pay all your bills. You're going to transfer money over there a lot. Have your attorney set up your entity and register with the state to get your tax ID number. Meet with your accountant to discover that structure, S Corp, LLC, come up with a name and a logo, and develop a website. We've used Dr. Logic. I have to spend about $1,000 a month on it. I don't know if it's worth it or not, but there's some room for IT work there. Get your office manager and ask for help. Your staff is your greatest expense. Keep it high value. Keep it small. I call it lean and mean. Small, smart, kind, experienced, and efficient. And there are companies that can help with the paychecks, company handbooks, and HR manuals. And whether you lease or buy your equipment, this is something you really need to look at. I had paid off a lot of my equipment at the time, and that helped. But your maintenance contracts are huge. So you can look at buying used equipment, and leasing may be the better way to go with a lease to buy. I'll tell you, this stuff devalues amazing in a year or two. It just goes to half price. But every specialty is different. Ophthalmology, I have patients from birth to death. I have 4 generations of patients, and at generation 4 now we share like great-great-grandkids. It's kind of, or cousins. It's kind of interesting how that goes. But ophthalmology is also a combination of a medical and a surgical specialty, so that's helped. So create something uniquely suited to you. I think there's opportunity. I can treat the uninsured, the underinsured, the delayed, the denied, and yet I can take care of people because Medicare has a lot of non-covered services. For example, if you're going to have ophthalmology treat you and you want cataract surgery and you want to have a laser surgery and advanced technology implant, Medicare doesn't cover that. So my fees are so much lower that I come out the same or better than my colleagues across the hall. and I mean literally, I'm looking at them. The obstacles, we talked about the fact that Medicare age patient, many of them want to use their Medicare. I have the Century Club. If you're 100, I don't charge you. And I have a lot of them. So now I'm going to tell you my last 5 slides. I want to make you smile. And the S is for surgery. Stay ahead of the curve with state-of-the-art advanced technology care. Lasers, implants. I do refractive cataract surgery. It's exciting, gratifying, and it minimizes the hamster wheel work. The trend is away from hospital outpatient department to ASC to in-office. Some of my colleagues at our laser center are doing oral sedation, and they can work with a company that kind of does roll-on, roll-off, and they use a 50-50 model. I haven't done this, but with the office space, they're doing the cases for about $250 a case. So they can get their overall case down to about $2,500 a case. So we talked about negotiating with the laser center, and what I stressed to them was they will have immediate collections. I will give them a check right away. They'll have no billing and no account receivable. And you want to have transparency on your fees, and that's one thing that Dr. Smith's website is phenomenal on. And they know what it's going to cost. What are my obstacles? My obstacles are anesthesia. I have an anesthesiologist, but my colleagues cannot get anesthesia. We're using CRNAs when we can't get someone. I wish we had your model where the anesthesiologist ran the show and we could come in, out, and go. We've had to reschedule cases. I haven't, because I beg mine, and I pay him directly. I write every case, I give my anesthesiologist a check, and I'm like, thanks for coming, keep coming. He's a wonderful physician, and I'm thankful for that. And I think you need to make arrangements with, if I have a problem and I need a retina doctor, I have one that has agreed to treat my direct patient care patients for me for Medicare fees. So medications, this is the M. Most states have in-office dispense, and you can use Josh Humbert, Atlas MD as an example of this, but it would be awesome if my patients could just get all their drops at my office at cost when they leave. Dr. David Garrett and I sued the state of Texas with the help of Institute for Justice, and we ended up appealing it all the way up to the Supreme Court level in Texas and lost. Pharma was too strong, they beat us. But that's something in other states, I think that's important. And again, this requires constant education and marketing, and I need to update my Met website. I had a meeting with the IT person, and we missed that. Imaging. Next is going to be Dr. Dickerson, and I'm going to let her take that on, but what I am able to do is refer patients to direct pay imaging places, and you don't have to wait on prioritizations, delay, and it's wonderful. Labs, I negotiated with Quest, LabCorp, there's online places, and I can get CBCs for $4, A1Cs for $7. I have some patients that come to me and want to just get me to order their labs instead of their general doctor. Pathology, I think there's room for improvement with pathology, sending out specimens. I was talking to one of my pathology colleagues yesterday. And finally, the E, extras. And Mary Talley Bowden is direct pay. Dr. Gold talked about her with ENT. And the extras are nice. You know, one of the extras is just have a really nice, relaxing environment. I think my patients will enjoy moving to the new office. It's comfortable, parking, accessible, with everything on site. But the other things that you can do, I have contact lenses. We have an optical. We have products for lid hygiene, lash enhancement. I don't do it anymore. I'm too busy, but my colleague, when she was getting started, was able to do Botox. Ophthalmologists are ones that initially started using it. So we do have an opportunity to have a private, sacrosanct, long-lasting, uninterrupted patient-physician relationship, and I think this is very, very valuable. I give my surgical patients my numbers, we text. And the E also stands for an emergency escape. There's no threats from Medicare, third party, from mandates. I was attacked at my office because when I would speak out against masking or 4-hydroxychloroquine or against the lockdowns, the silencers would call my office and threaten my staff and threaten my young colleagues, and they were very scared. So I had to start my own. That's when I broke away and started iSurgeonDirect.com. I said, you know what? Fine. I've had Stoneoak Ophthalmology for years. I built it. I am now my own new entity. It took me about 2 days to do it. And then they can launch all the shots that I want, whereas my colleagues are in Medicare and insurance, and they didn't want to face any potential collateral damage from my desire to take what I felt were ethical stands at the time. And so reach out to Free Market Medical Association. Dr. Smith is also with that. Dr. Roger Muchigimba's here. Large local employers, school districts, DPC networks. Docs for Patient Care was great. Phil Eskew, Twyla Brace, David Blott, Atlas MD. These are all great resources. I'm happy to talk to about anyone about this. But this has really helped me. I have the whole Harlandale School District in San Antonio that can choose to come to me, and they'll write me a check for my prearranged fees. I have patients that come in from out of town for me to do their surgery. I'm given a check by that company, and I save the employer's money, and the patients love it. They'll put them up overnight. It's awesome. So stay connected with third-party free colleagues. I think this is where we really need to go. We all need to have a list where we can access everyone easily across the country. And then smile. Here's my other final things. Don't be afraid, and don't get your feelings hurt. I got my feelings hurt a lot at first when my patients would leave and choose to use their Medicare and didn't stay with me. Don't take it personally, because the ones that stay with you, it's a relationship. And I tell them, you want to go home every night to a new husband? No, I know you. You come in the room, it's worth something. And you'll love it. That's what I love about it. So do the Drexit with a smile, and be high-tech, creative, compassionate, critical thinking, and cure-orient. And it'd serve the patient first with ethical, accessible, affordable care, no mandated protocols, no groupthink. It's not my fault. Our team was just following orders, and no quotas. I have not increased my prices. I make the same money, but note, I work 40% less, and I never take home charts. I'm not oppressed by government and third-party mandates and demand. I have freedom of speech, critical thinking, scientific discourse, and now that makes me smile. Do the Drexit. And this is me putting in my 150th light adjustable lens, I think. And this was my favorite part that I got to put on my new website. You can do whatever you want on your own website. And I love horses, I love Texas. And thank you all for coming to Texas and being here. And now I want to introduce the highlights of this. Here's my contact information. All these slides will be somewhere, and I'm always happy to talk to anyone, as Dr. Smith was so kindly would talk to me. Thank you. Now, Dr. Dickerson now.
Hi, everybody. I'm Cristin Dickerson. I'm a radiologist out of Houston. I founded Green Imaging about 13 years ago to solve a problem in my community, which was that there wasn't affordable imaging. Deductibles were skyrocketing. We had 21% uninsured at that point in time. And River Oaks Imaging was purchased by Memorial Hermann, and it was the primary chain of imaging centers that was in network. And so suddenly the prices tripled, as it always does when somebody's purchased by private equity or a hospital. And I had friends calling me from the hospital saying, do I really need to pay $3,000 for this MRI? And unfortunately, that was reality in my community. And so, looked at opening an imaging center. My husband's in commercial real estate. And, we had it all planned out. And that was going to be about $4 million. And I wasn't going to be able to save anybody any money. So Travelocity and a lot of non-brick and mortar kind of savings ideas were coming to light at that point in time. So I explored, and this is where we as entrepreneurs, we can get around the bureaucracy. And I think that's what Keith and Kris have done so well as well. And so looked at the Stark laws, and actually radiologists can do unique lease arrangements with imaging centers. We can do per-click lease arrangements because we're not referring physicians. My patients all have an order from their doctor. I'm not the referring physician. And so we were able to buy the extra time on the table at the imaging centers that I was already reading for as a radiologist and push it to our PACS system. Our radiologists, our subspecialty radiologists read the study. We were assuring the quality of the images, assuring the protocol was correct, assuring the right radiologist read it, and we passed the savings on to individuals. But the problem for me with a slim margin in imaging is that trying to get individual patients, getting the word out that I was doing this was very expensive. If I wanted to market, it was super expensive. But every time I would get free marketing, we'd have this huge surge of people wanting to use us, and then that would go away. And so I had run a self-funded healthcare plan. I was in my 30s, I was managing partner of Diagnostic Clinic of Houston in the Texas Medical Center, and we were direct contracting. We used our Blue Cross Blue Shield plan as our catastrophic plan, and we pulled everything out to surgeons we worked with, to primary care doctors in our practice. We had our own lab and imaging, and we were able to keep our costs flat with Blue Cross Blue Shield in a time that prices were skyrocketing. So I had that background, and so I knew that health plans were really the answer for us. Again, this is all, you guys know this. She's down to 23% on people being independent. The last I had was 26%. And you know, the really important point here is there is no correlate between cost and quality of healthcare in this country. And so independent physicians are the most affordable option, and also the quality tends to follow. Independent doctors are also the happiest. And I think if you look at the three of us, we're three of the happiest doctors I know. And I actually work with, hundreds of doctors in the FMMA space, in the Health Rosetta space, and it's a whole different world. And these are doctors who are controlling their own destiny, and it is a very nice way to practice. Again, in a hospital system, 20% of the healthcare spend goes back to the doctors, which is obscene. In the real world, it can really be much better than that, and we can work less for the same dollars and turn out a better outcome for us as physicians. And again, this is the reason for it. It's this rise of hospital administrators, the middlemen that don't need to be in the equation. There are necessary middlemen, but most of them are unnecessary, and everybody's taken a cut. You know the direct pay models, I'm sure, that are emerging. I kind of wanted to do a little bit of an update on that and what I'm seeing, because I'm on the Validation Institute's board for the Certified Value Healthcare Professional, where we are really trying to structure it. Most people in this country have their health care through an employer-sponsored health plan. That doesn't mean that Blue Cross Blue Shield is insuring them. That means the self-funded healthcare space is one that has a lot of flexibility. And so there is a lot of innovation in healthcare happening there. And in fact, according to Dave Chase, who runs Health Rosetta, the second largest healthcare economy right now in the United States is the American out-of-pocket healthcare system. What we are paying either toward a deductible, or what we're paying direct pay or cash, or what employers are paying directly to these people. It is the second largest healthcare economy, and that is something you can tap into if you want to do it. There are so many ways to do it. There is let's go back to, sorry, wrong direction. Oh, it's not going back. Okay, I'll talk about direct primary care. Direct primary care, I'm supposed to tell you all, this is when I posted that I was speaking today, all the healthcare advisors, they're kind of replacing the brokers, are saying, tell them there is a supply issue. We don't have enough direct pay doctors, especially DPC, which I'm sure everybody's heard a little bit about it. It is subscription-based primary care. And advanced primary care is another form of this. My company, my employees have an advanced primary care solution. It's Next Level Urgent Care, their Next Level Prime out of Texas. We save over 50% on our primary care. They get 50% of that by telehealth. They get the other, I guess about 75% of the other after hours and weekends. They're not missing work, and they and their family members all have this benefit. So 24/7, they can either access telehealth, or an urgent care brick and mortar facility, or go in and they can get primary care there as well. That is a game changer, and that ethically aligns the Next Level Prime They're only going to get renewed if they're providing value for me. It ethically aligns my employees who are getting, the care they need. They're not getting this, paying this premium that's so expensive that they have nothing left to pay for primary care and for health care. And it's just the right thing to do. It's great for employers because we're saving money and we're getting people the care they need. Our recidivism from work with people taking off for their own health care and their families has decreased by 80%. And so it is truly a value, and it's something that's ethically aligned and something that model is booming all over this country. The problem is supply. And, there are connectors for this. A lot of DPC doctors are purists. They only want the relationship to be between themselves and the patient and that monetary flow to be there and nothing else outside of that. From a practical standpoint, again, that is typically a several-year process to really grow your panel. There are organizations, Hint is actually a software company, but they've done a platform that's connecting or making a network out of DPC doctors. And then Clint Flanagan, this is a really exciting thing with Nextera, is actually doing a physician-owned, where he's aggregating practices, but the whole entity is physician-owned. There's no private equity, there's no middleman that's sucking the life out of that. And I think that's a tremendous opportunity. Episodic care, which is what we provide, it's a little different because you got to have enough patients to support your practice. And I think episodic care is very much supported. Again, what I had to do was pivot to the employer market to get enough lives, to get enough facilities, to get enough people in there to make this whole formula work. And episodic care is a little more challenging, but again is ethically aligned in some cases. Where you're paying a subscription to get to it, it's a little bit different. I don't believe that somebody should pay a subscription to get to green imaging. I believe if I provide value, if they have a great patient experience, if the quality is great and their DPC doctor, like Dr. Roger, is happy with what we've done, that's going to continue and we're going to be ethically aligned. There are entities, and so always if you're looking at joining an organization that offers these services, find out who owns it. Is it private equity? Is it a hospital system? Is it individuals? Do you have an opportunity to benefit from the profitability of the organization? That's a really important factor. And then chronic care has some tremendous opportunity for subscription-based again. Rheumatology, cardiology. These practices, they're seeing their patients quarterly. They can, again, like Kris, they can include labs, the basic labs that patient's going to need. They can include the imaging. A rheumatology on call, Dr. Granita, is basically doing that. She's offering bundles and subscriptions for rheumatology, and it's a great opportunity. I had no cardiologists who are doing this. So that subscription-based care and chronic care and diabetes is another one that can be really well managed that way. And then the thing that I want to get to that's a little different that we're seeing in the market is niche-based care. This is where people are finding solutions for problems. And I don't know if you all saw the data, but so many young people would change jobs actually if a fertility benefit were offered by the employer. These are problems that, we don't consider these traditional health benefits, but these are things that are keeping employees in place, keeping employees happy. The ones, the lactation specialist network, that one's, it's so interesting because about 75% of women actually don't stay on their job a year after taking maternity leave because of stressors. And this lactation supplementation, these programs that they put in place in the workplace, where they give them lactation support, these people, 75% of them stay in the workplace. And so it's an investment that we really haven't thought of as employers in this country, but this is real health care. This is really what people need in their day-to-day business. And one of the things that's also very important is that doctors, if they get into this line of business with working with health plans, is understanding how health plans work. Even as somebody who was managing partner of a 50-plus doctor, multi-specialty group, I knew what self-funding was. I knew all these things. I did not understand health plans. And I'll tell you, those of you who are still accepting traditional insurance, there are so many places you're getting cheated. Insurance subrogation is one. That person maybe slipped and fell. There's a diagnosis code so we're not going to pay for that MRI. Maybe workman's comp is going to pay for it. And they expect a patient, sometimes not even English speaking, to fill out a form and get that over so that I can get paid. I'm not going to get paid most of the time in that setting. There are, retro terminations are a new thing. In the old days, we could count on that patient being covered until the end of the month if we verified their insurance. Now they're actually terminating them retrospectively if they haven't paid their premium, or if the employer missed a premium or was late on a premium. And so there's so many ways, inappropriate discounts, but they're applying unbundling rules where they shouldn't. They do it to their advantage. There's so many problems with the way we're paid by health plans that I really, and that's why I'm on this Validation Institute board that's really certifying. And I think physicians in this country who do accept insurance should take this course and educate themselves. Even, 30 years in with really working in the employer space, I'm learning things from this course. And I think it's a tremendous opportunity for people, so I'm happy to convey how to access that. Again, like Kris, the FMMA has been a tremendous resource. Health Rosetta this year, Dave Chase founded it to really get people away from being health insurance brokers, where they benefit, they get paid on a commission. So the more that health insurance costs, the more money they're making. He is making it more of a consultant role and, changing the way that advisors are paid so that it's more ethically aligned. And I think Health Rosetta is wonderful in the same way FMMA is. When I come away from one of those conferences, I am just buoyed up to go keep doing this, and I meet so many like-minded people, and I think the physicians need to be involved in this. If the physicians are not part of these conversations, which are with employers, they're with third-party administrators, they are with, the brokers and advisors, but literally employers are there who are seeking their own solutions, like the school districts. School districts have been amazing for us. They're tightly geographically aggregated. You get lots of lives. They're a wonderful opportunity. But I would say Health Rosetta is something I would love to see you all get involved with, because they need physician input. They need physicians, they need the supply, and they need physician input. And this gives us all the opportunity to magnify what we need from healthcare. For so long it's been taken away. We've let people take it away from us. But we need to get it back, and we have a tremendous opportunity to do that. And so, I'm not going to be around this afternoon. I got to get back, and there's this shortage of radiologists right now that impacts my lifestyle. But I am always available by email, text, whatever. And I'm going to put my contact information up one more time. And I love mentoring people who are going into the direct pay market, and I love making introductions. If you have a practice that could really benefit one of our clients, I love to make those introductions. So there at least is the email address. Okay, so thank you, and thanks for having me.
Well, hello, I'm Keith Smith. For those of you that don't know me, I feel like I'm home. This is where, this organization is where I acquired, I think, the fundamentals for how to not only interact with patients, but also to interact with patients in the cesspool of an industry that is all around us. We drove by this huge, disgusting, not-for-profit hospital on the way in. I could throw up. Some Methodist hospital. It's just like so much money. But this is like home, and I'm going to start with the story. The first time I remember speaking at AAPS, I was so nervous. Jane Orient and I had been talking, and I'd received a letter from Medicare that Jane meant to make me famous with. Lois Copeland, Michael Schlitt are sort of old names. This organization, Lois Copeland, was featured by the Heritage Foundation in a publication called Policy Review. She opted out of Medicare. She was one of the first, and it kind of got things started. And then this organization basically had a how-to manual on their website, so anybody could figure out how to do it. In 1992, I performed the last cardiac anesthetic for which I received a payment from Medicare. It was a 6-hour case, and I was paid $285. And I was a member, and I received a $78 payment from Medicare for anesthesia for a total knee. So at the time, I was a member of this organization, and I remember going to DC and walking around and, telling the legislators how unfairly I was paid. And there was something wrong about it because, here I was, small government conservative, but begging a congressman to pay me more. It just, And this opt-out thing haunted me. And I decided not to opt out. I decided to just stop filing claims and just keep providing the anesthesia. Well, the result of that, within about 18 months, I get a letter. And it's a letter from Medicare that says, you've been decommissioned. And I thought, well, that's great. I don't have to opt out. And when I talked to Jane about this letter, what? Send me a copy of that. And I was asked to speak in front of this group years ago, and I showed this letter up on the screen, and everyone wanted to know, how do I get that letter? So I knew I was in the right place. The speaker before me was Ron Paul, and he exited the stage, and I said, well, I follow you. And he said, you'll do fine. Just classic Ron Paul. And so I delivered this talked about, my Medicare letter. And, by that time, you all had recognized me. I was pretty proud of myself. And I exited the stage, and there was a fellow named Nino Camardis and another fellow named Curtis Kane. And congratulations, they said. I have never filed a Medicare claim, they said. And then I was, then I was humbled. And this organization is really where all of the fundamentals for everything that I've done came from. And that was a moment. That was a real moment for me. So I had to tell my AA. I don't think I've ever told that story. I'm also wanting to encourage any and all of you that want to do anything at all like I have done or like Kris or Cristin have done. I want to encourage you, but there are caveats. It's hard. You have to prepare yourself. You have to read. And what I did was I posted a website in 2009 with our all-inclusive prices at a surgery center. I'd been quoting prices over the phone since we opened in 1997 with no concept of how outrageous and radical that was. But in 2009, I posted these prices online, and there are a number of things that happened. There are a number of things that happened nationally, I would argue, in the industry as a result of this one surgery center. We started with 10 surgeons. We now have 120 on staff, so it's a large operation. We do almost every surgical subspecialty, perform those cases at our facility. I'm pediatric fellowship trained. We still do a lot of pediatric surgery. That's really what I love to do. And so I would encourage you, what you heard from Kris Held is something a consultant who does not know nearly what she knows would charge you probably $100,000 for. That was a step-by-step, how do you do this, even down to the point of, do you lease space? We started off at Surgery Center of Oklahoma by assuming a lease of a failed facility, and we caught it right before they lost their license. So we didn't have that capital expense to buy bricks and mortar. After we were operational and quickly outgrew that space, we paid cash for the facility in which we now operate with the revenue that we continued to generate while we were working at the place that we leased. So we tried to be smart about it. We've never had any debt. That has always been a good decision. It's allowed us to keep our prices low. It's allowed us to weather the market. If you go down this road, people will be coming to see you because they want to see you, not because they're part of some plan. There won't be really any steerage that comes your way unless you deliver obscene value. And you market yourself and you talk about it and you know the stories, the compared to what? The $19,000 breast biopsy in Oklahoma City was a great story for Surgery Center of Oklahoma that did it for $1,900 early on in 1997. And this 10-to-1 spread has really remained the rule in the industry. So I want to encourage you, but you'll have to go through some re-education. Part of the re-education is unlearning a lot that we think we know and think that we're right about. So be prepared. I went through this. Be prepared to challenge yourself and always scour yourself for philosophical consistency. A lot of the wisdom I think I gleaned that allowed the surgery center and continues to allow it to be successful came from the economists at the Austrian school. Anything you can grab from that bunch will help you, beginning with the concept and theory of value. So be sure you understand the subjective theory of value, and that's down in the weeds a little bit, but every time I see a physician write something on social media that says, oh, I went to school, I worked so hard, and I have all this debt, I deserve to be paid X amount. That's Karl Marx stuff. That is the labor theory of value. If you ever see that and you agree with them, you need to rethink that. I was a musician before I went to medical school. I actually thought about being a professional musician as a pianist, and I decided not to. Went a different way. But I remember right before I'd changed my mind, I was sitting in a concert listening to a candidate for his PhD in harpsichord performance at North Texas University in Denton. And he was playing this clavichord, actually, for this very small crowd. And the piano professor sitting next to me leaned over to me and said, PhD in harpsichord performance. They should marry a bassoonist and they can starve together. But I'm here to tell you the number of hours and work that went into a PhD in harpsichord performance rivals anything anyone in this room, myself included, has done with their medical training, but they are not commanding or entitled to any sort of payment. It's the market. So come to grips with that. I would say the other thing that we have to unlearn is a visceral reaction to this self-funded health world. And Cristin has touched on it. Go search YouTube for Jay Kempton's lecture to this organization and listen with an open mind. My friend Marty McCary calls the self-funded buyer the proxy buyer for the individual. So at the Surgery Center of Oklahoma, we receive payment from individuals. They bring it in a Ziploc bag or a paper sack sometimes. They bring it as Bitcoin. They bring it as with a credit card or a cashier's check. We also receive payments from cost-sharing ministries that pay us directly, or the patient fronts the money and the ministry reimburses the patient. We also receive payments from self-funded health plans. So the Surgery Center of Oklahoma is self-funded. So I know a little bit about how this works. The employees at the Surgery Center of Oklahoma have no money taken out of their paycheck for our health plan. I have the checkbook. I pay 100% of any medical services that they require. They receive 100% reimbursement for their direct primary care membership if they have one. I'm in control of this health plan. And so if someone needs their colon removed or they have a brain tumor, I can buy those things from all of the hospitals in Oklahoma City, with a couple of exceptions, who work so hard to try to put me out of business early on. And that's kind of what I want to end with, is so you'll know that the power of this movement and this free market. Just think about that. I know at least 2 of the talks that I have given to this organization were about the extent to which I fought for our lives at the state capitol in Oklahoma City. We were attacked by the hospitals, by the carriers. The health department was weaponized against us. I could write a book just on that, just on those experiences, and the amount of time that I spent marching the halls at the state capitol, just begging to be left alone. We weren't taking any money. We've never accepted federal money. What we didn't understand, though, is we were still doing business with criminals. We were still filing out-of-network claims, and that was stepping on the toes of the hospitals and the insurance companies. If you do business with Medicare, you're doing business with organized crime. I mean, that is a syndicate, and you have to be careful the way you work with them. But even if you're filing insurance claims, you are stepping on toes. You are basically doing business with criminals. I didn't realize we had to stop doing that. And so we were being attacked. I mean, that looks real bad when a tonsillectomy at my facility, surgeon facility anesthesia, all in, is less than a patient's in-network deductible at a so-called not-for-profit hospital. The hospitals don't like that. That makes them look really awful. The insurance companies hate it too, because they have to explain, well, why don't you work with Surgery Center of Oklahoma? Well, because they make more money the higher the starting charge. So self-funded health plans, mine included, would rather buy a $3,000 tonsillectomy for an employee than a $30,000 tonsillectomy for an employee. And the spread is so insane, I'll pay the whole thing. And there are companies out there who are done. And that's why Dave Chase's Health Rosetta has been so wildly successful. In DC, at the meeting a week ago, there were 1,000 people registered. I mean, these are These are people in the industry that are moving companies away from Blue, United, Cigna, Aetna, Humana, and saying, just secede, do your own thing, hold that checkbook in your lap, and buy it smart. You'll save a ton of money, your employees will be spared bankruptcy, and then you can pour fuel on the fire of practices like ours and like we hope that you all will start. I receive inquiries for procedures we cannot appropriately perform at an outpatient surgery center. I can now pick up the phone, call a hospital administrator or CFO in Oklahoma City and in other cities and say, here is a patient from Florida who needs a robotic prostatectomy. I don't do those. At Surgery Center of Oklahoma, we don't have a robot. I know you do. There is a surgeon that works at your facility who I know is phenomenal. Do you want this business? Well, number one, who is this? This is Keith Smith. Yeah, I do. And then the next question, how much do you want? What? I said, no, I'm like the opposite of Blue Cross. I'm asking you. I don't tell you, hospital, how much do you want? And obviously, I mean, if you're super greedy on this, the Florida patient is not coming to Oklahoma City. So this accountability kumbaya is already built in. And when it's all over with, the price is great. And I just arranged to pay a hospital that tried to crush me in our early days. So that is the power of this movement. That's what's going on. These vicious price gougers, very much still in the closet, are having to learn how to accommodate the sticker-shocked buyer. So just embrace the good news. There's a lot of bad stuff out there, but I think Jay Kempton and I at the Free Market Medical Association are both very optimistic long term. I think it's going to get a little worse in the short term. Long term, a lot of optimism because we are seeing employer groups that have had it. We're seeing cost-sharing ministries that have had it. They are just finished buying from the price gougers. So there is a lot of opportunity. Study hard and become familiar with the same business market discipline all the other industries in the country must endure. And Godspeed. Thank you.
I think we've got some time for questions for the panel. I failed to say three things that I think you should know. With MACRA, when you used to have to opt out of Medicare every 2 years, now you opt out and you can opt back in, but there's an automatic renewal on your opt-out, which is also called private contracted. However, the patients have to, every patient that you see that's a Medicare patient has to sign that they understand you're opted out, they're not going to bill, and they have to do that the patients have to do it every 2 years. The second thing is when I'm at a surgery center that does take Medicare, the patient can use their Medicare benefits for the surgical side. They just have to pay my surgical fee separately. And that's where we got in the problems with the mandates regarding vaccine and such, because any sort of a surgery center that took any federal money, if you even walked into it, you had to comply with that. And then the final thing is I don't file out-of-network benefits. We don't file anything. We feel like the patients are big boys and girls. Their agreement is with the insurance company. Mine isn't. I'm not their intermediary. They need to see what they bought, and they need to demand their value. So if they have out-of-network benefits, go for it. We'll give them a code or whatever, but I don't, they do it on their own. Okay, any questions for anybody?
Yeah, Kris, Hans Lessman, Pittsburgh, and I'm an optometrist, and I have a cash-based practice, but a number of my colleagues that have switched over from third party to free market, if you will, have told me they've lost 75% of their patients, but the patients they have then want to be there. What was your experience in terms of percentage lost when you switched over?
Initially, I did lose some of my Medicare patients. I looked at that. One of my talks I gave here, I reported on that. And initially, I lost like 25%, but then I got younger patients. And what's interesting is I'm getting a lot of my Medicare patients back. I've told my staff, never get rid of my charts. It's like a baby book. And I have patients now that they cannot get in with an ophthalmologist. Oh, because I'm opted out, I can see Medicare Advantage patients, HMO patients, anybody, because I'm out of Medicare. So I get to see them when they actually have a problem. So I'm regaining those patients. I don't think that I lost a lot, and they don't come in and see me with like, you're on my insurance, I own you. The patients that see me, it's a wonderful relationship. So I didn't lose 75% of my patients. Plus, I was working too hard. I didn't want to see that many.
Yeah, Galen Perry directs specialty care for about the last 2 years in Kansas City. Question is for Dr. Smith. So I opted out of Medicare, and then I realized you can't opt back in if you need to, because this was early on when I went into practice for 2 years. And I was like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to opt back out, or opt back in maybe. So anyway, what you're saying is if I don't bill Medicare ever, doesn't really matter whether I opt in or opt out. Can I see Medicare patients for cash in my practice without getting in trouble? That's one question. And the second one is, I'm now going to be a contract physician because I read sleep studies, and I need access to sleep studies at a hospital. I'm going to be a contract physician. They're going to be billing Medicare. Can I still see Medicare patients in my practice and charge them cash, and yet do that for a hospital as a contract physician?
I have no idea. But I tell you what, there are people in this room who do, who can answer that. I think because I was decommissioned, I think because I had a piece of paper that said you're out, I could do whatever I wanted. And I think if you opt out, you can do whatever you want. But if you just stop filing claims and you never bill them, and you don't have that piece of paper and you didn't opt out, I think that's gray. And when you fight with them, it's like, defending yourself against F-16s and tanks. I mean, I've told people that Medicare is the only carrier that has its own F-16s and tanks, and that's not a coincidence. I mean, they really, and people in this room can vouch for that, but that's very technical. I wouldn't be comfortable billing Medicare patients directly unless I had a really hard piece of paper that said you're out. I wouldn't.
So I think that are you talking about outpatient utilization? So like if I use an ASC or if I use the outpatient department of the surgery center, the patient can still utilize their benefits there, and this is with cataract surgery, and that pays it. But my fee is separate. So I don't file, they don't file, they pay me directly. So you can do those two different things. There's a difference between disenrolled or never enrolled and opted out. There's a difference. The problem with the disenrolled, and Larry and Jane are very good on this, is that if you write a prescription, Medicare doesn't have to pay for it. Because I'm an opted out, or it's also called private contracted, when I write a prescription, when I write for imaging, they have to honor it. Medicaid doesn't, but Medicare does. So my prescriptions and everything, I still have an ability to care for those patients, and we can never let that go. And remember, only 1% of patients are opted out, so sometimes they don't know, and we have to just do it and find out what happens later. And that's where Andy might come in handy, I guess.
Hold on. You can't be sort of out of Medicare in your own practice and in Medicare when you're working for somebody else at the same time. You're either all in Medicare or you're all out.
Okay, Dr. Emmons. Oh, yeah,
Hi,
Green City.
Dr.
sorry, I
Kim
couldn't see,
Corba,
sorry.
Direct Primary Care from
Oh.
Allentown. I've been doing DPC for 10 years. Quick answer on the Medicare issue. You can opt out and then you get ORP status. And this happens with Medicaid too. It's called ordering, referring, and prescribing status. So you can still order tests, you can refer, you can prescribe medications, because you have a PCOS number, but you're not billing Medicare for your services. So Medicare will recognize you as ORP status. You have to delineate that though when you excuse me, do the opt-out part. So that might answer your question. You can still see the Medicare patients, you just can't bill, and yes, you can still prescribe and order and refer, but you have to have ORP status. And Kris is right, when you send them to a place for testing or for a surgical procedure, they do the billing to the Medicare, you're not billing them. For instance, and this is a simple example, when I draw blood in my office, if my patient wants to use their insurance and not do the cash prices we've negotiated, I copy their insurance card, attach it to the lab requisition, write the diagnosis codes on it, and LabCorp bills their insurance. So it's another party billing and it's not me. So I hope that helps. Another thing I wanted to mention, and that wasn't the original reason I wanted to stand up and make a comment. I think one of the best things independent doctors can do, whether you're direct care or not, and yes, we need more direct care, there is a shortage, is prescribe from your office, dispense from your office. That is something the hospital-owned practices can't do. The hospital won't allow them to do that, except in Texas, where you guys, I hope, still take up that fight at some point to dispense. There's only 4 states that can't dispense: New Jersey, New York, and Massachusetts. New Jersey has, I think, a little 5-day thing that they can do, but any other state, 46 states, we can dispense medications at wholesale or near wholesale cost as a value-added benefit to our patients, whether we're direct care or not. As independents, that is huge. People will, even if they have great insurance coverage, they'll say, just give me the amoxicillin now before I leave the office. A mom toting 3 kids, one in an infant carrier. She doesn't want to drive through the pharmacy. Believe me, I've been there. No, just give me the medication, I'll pay the $5 and I'm going home. So that is such a huge value-added benefit that we don't take advantage of as independents, whether you're direct care or not. If you're direct care, definitely do it. But that is just one thing I wanted to say. Thanks.
Yeah, I think it is just a travesty that we don't have that in Texas. And, we took it all the way up to the level of Texas Supreme Court and lost it. But particularly during COVID, people didn't want to go out. How easy to go to your doctor, get the meds there. I thought this will be the perfect time. No, they didn't do it again.
Kevin Presley, I'm from Missouri. I read an article about a medical student that basically was kicked out of his medical school for publishing about poor COVID response. And I was just wondering if any of you guys know of any movement to have medical students be able to have a parallel system to go through medical school, then training, then get into practice in private care.
Sort of. I'll mention the Free Market Medical Association has a tract for medical students now. We have coordinated with the Benjamin Rush Institute, but in terms of their didactic curriculum, I'm not aware of a parallel path. For their ethical and financial education, there's definitely a parallel track where all of the kind of socialistic crap that is laid on them in medical school is being dealt with. I think it's 2 weeks from now in Oklahoma City, we'll have one of the most woke medical schools in the United States is in Oklahoma City at University of Oklahoma, my alma mater. And they actually have to take a course where they have to answer all these questions, the right way. It's called like physician, patient, and society. And it's just horrendous. So anyhow, they come to Surgery Center of Oklahoma for the antivenom. And I provide all the pizza and beer they can drink, and they show up in large numbers. You'll see pictures you'll see pictures on the Surgery Center of Oklahoma's Twitter feed of these gatherings. And I think there are 37 state chapters of the Free Market Medical Association now. I think that's the latest number. It may be higher than that. And all of the state chapters have been kind of tasked with bringing medical students in, partly also to dissuade them from becoming hospital employees. That's the first thing I tell them. I said, drink all the beer you want, eat all the pizza you want, but don't ever become an employee. Because if you do, you will face that situation no physician should ever face, and that is, do I do what's right for this patient, or do I do what's right for my employer to keep my job? You should never be in that position, and it's inevitable. And it's not exaggeration. I mean, the best gallbladder surgeon in town is in the city is across town, not in your mafia family of whatever hospital you work for. Some butcher down the hall you're supposed to refer to. That is that situation where you knowingly do not refer to the person you think is best for the job. So I have those kind of conversations with the medical students. My partner Steve Lantier is there. We do that. We bring in local physicians who are independent, many of whom have very tearful stories to tell about when they were an employee. And so we're trying to dissuade them from doing that. And then my brother gave me a great suggestion. He said, bring bankers in. Because the students say, where am I going to get all this money to go into private practice? Bankers? I mean, that way they're ad hoc. You pay them off and they're gone. And so we bring bankers in, and they look these medical students in the eye and say, we would love to loan you money. We would love to help you get your practice started. We really like clients like you. You tend to be loyal. And so that is going on, and that movement is growing. And that's very, very exciting. The idea that some young physician comes out of residency and has no intention of going to work for a hospital is pretty cool.
Thank you. And I'm trying to get to questions in the order I see hands up. I got Dr. Wax next. Thank you.
Hi there. Craig Wax, family medicine, private practice since 2001. I'm an AAPS board member. Those are my potential conflicts of interest. Just a quick comment for a mistake definitely not to make that others have made, and I don't know if you mentioned it or not, but you can welcome to comment on it. When you decide to opt out or go cash or have some other arrangement, even barter or something like that, you never tell patients that their appointments are canceled. We have a 5 radiology practice. There must be 40 radiologists. I don't know how they, schedule themselves, but 5 different buildings with millions and millions of dollars of radiology equipment has been around since 1950. This practice has grown. And they reached an impasse with possibly one of the worst insurance companies in America, our very own New Jersey Blue Cross Blue Shield called Horizon. Having said all of that, they reached an impasse with them. They tried to negotiate. It didn't work out. Then at the last minute, rather than at the beginning of the negotiation, they reached out to patients and physicians, and unfortunately that didn't turn over. It was too late. And they wound up telling my patients that I had sent there, I'm sorry, your appointment is canceled. Not, we don't take your insurance, but we have these options for you because we value your relationship. We want you to stay here. We want to make it cost effective and continue the professionalism that you've seen since 1950. Instead, they say, I'm sorry, your appointment is canceled. And if I was the patient and was called with your appointment is canceled, as opposed to, hey, we want to work with you, the insurance company is bollocks, but we're trying to work with you directly. So that was a huge issue for them, and I don't know if they'll survive. I mean, they've been, treading water since then. I don't know if you want to comment on canceling appointments versus we don't participate with your insurance company because of their issues, and here's what we have for you.
Well, on the way to opting out, and I'm a fan of incrementalism. Yeah, on your way to opting out, You can do what I know a lot of specialists, particularly orthopedic surgeons, are doing now. When a Medicare patient calls or is referred, and yeah, he'll see you in 8 months. Whoa, that's a long time. Yeah, well, he's only accepting one new Medicare patient every week or two. So there's a lot of that going on where people are just slowly withdrawing and just limiting their exposure to the abusers. So I wouldn't cancel them. I would just tell them, yeah, I've got a Medicare slot for you in 9 years or whatever.
Well, I think we've seen this with ARA in Austin as well, and it's an ongoing battle there. And I work mostly with the smaller independent imaging centers there, and it's been a boon for them. So they do offer cash pay rates that are often frequently less than they would have paid with this carrier, at this chain of imaging centers, and so they have really benefited from this situation. And I think that's what you do. And they put the word out. They called all these referring physicians and said, hey, we can take your patients. And I think these referring physicians have been tremendously impressed with what we've been able to do there. We're doing MR interography. We're doing a lot of studies that they considered, ARA to be the mecca of doing. And instead they find that, same radiologists are reading for a lot of these same facilities and offer the same services. And if you have one that has better customer service and direct pay rates that are cheaper than your in-network costs, you're going to make hay out of that situation.
Brian Mitchell from Virginia. I wonder if you all think that there are certain specialties where this just can't be done. So since I've been a member of APS, I've tried to figure out if I could do it in oncology, and I haven't figured that out. One of the big problems is the enormous cost of the drugs and the other people out there, like the pharmacy benefit managers that suck a lot of money out of the system. And even for oral drugs, they're enormously expensive, and people without adequate insurance coverage need someone to find them a program to get in to get money to help them pay for the drugs. Not to mention all the employees that you need to take care of this group of people. So I haven't figured out how to make it work, and maybe oncology is just out from this sort of effort.
Well, I think that's where the employer space works. A lot of these employers have those fixes, whether it's international sourcing of drugs, whatever. They have those things fixed. And so, they can afford to pay, because they're not paying that much in the drugs, they can afford to pay you more, and you can provide better patient care. And so that's where this works really well, is getting out of the traditional system where the drug impacts how you're able to see patients, and instead you're getting a bulk of patients from a large employer and being able to provide better care for them because you're not worried about their ability to get the drugs.
Yeah, there's a lot of oncology members of Free Market Medical Association, and
Go ahead.
and they are basically charging the cost of the drug plus a reasonable administration fee, whereas at a hospital they would pay the cost of the drug times, pick a number, 3 to 5 plus an administration fee. So compared to what oncology in a more free market with transparent pricing is a huge opportunity.
I'd like to thank the panel very much. Three entrepreneurial frontier leaders, if you will, and I hope they've been an inspiration to everyone out there as they're considering their options for practicing medicine. Thank you very much.